Hello, in this one we're going to be taking a look at the best RGB fans that I've tested so far. We're going to be taking a look at it from only a performance perspective, not in my opinion as to the way the RGB looks. That is going to be up for you to determine. If you're curious about a specific fan about this video, I do recommend that you go to the specific video on it that I've in my channel that I've actually reviewed from it to get all the juicy details and more specific, while this is going to be more of a broad overview. So let's get right into it. So first up, a little bit of the raw data. So you can see this is for the CPU air cooler test, noise normalized on the left side, 100% PWM fan signaling on the right side, and how the fans rank overall. So we have first to last place from all the RGB fans. I've only tested 26 so far, but that gives a good overall kind of look at things. So you can go ahead and pause, or we're going to jump on to the actual graphs. So the best fan that I've tested, noise normalized, is the Mobius P ARGB. So that is a very good result from that fan. Next we have the Unifan SL Infinity 140mm class fan, which I'm actually pretty impressed with because the Infinity series is actually one of my favorite looking, just personal preference, but they're so expensive. Just throwing that out there. We got another Unifan, the SL140. You can read it and work your way down. As a note here, the A12X25 runs at around, or has an airspeed of around 1.3 meters per second of airspeed. So that gives you a good reference point of how each of these other fans are performing with respect to one of the best regarded computer fans on the market right now. So really only the Infinity and the Mobius are up there in terms of being better than the A12X25, while everything else would be considered underneath it. However, I do think that any fan that's performing higher than 1.2 meters per second in terms of airspeed would be considered good enough for most user applications, depending on your cooling setup. So if you're using a lower powered CPU or not needing to run it particularly fast all the time, 1.2 is plenty good. But if you need maximum performance, that means you need 100% PWM fan signaling. And here is where it separates the weaklings from the strong fans. So the A12X25 pushes air at 1.9 meters per second. So any fan that is able to achieve a higher airspeed than that would be considered good for high-powered coolers, assuming that your air cooler is actually capable of handling that much thermal load. So basically a cooler equivalent to the Noctua U12A is what I'm kind of talking about. If you're going liquid cooling and you need maximum performance, I'd still give that same benchmark, higher than the A12X25. But if you got like a double, triple rad setup, you're not going to be running these fans at 100% PWM fan signaling, almost guaranteed. So it's hard for me to say how much airspeed is enough. So I'll have to leave that for you to determine. But you won't nearly need as much crank to airspeed through it. But the best is the Mobius ARGB once again. Then we got the Bionics P ARGB. It's a little bit thicker than average fan. We got the Lightwings 120. Then we got the Unifan AL, the EK Loop FTP. And again, you can take a look at it. If you're curious about any of the specifics for any of these fans, I do recommend that you jump to that specific video. Next, we have cooler airspeed through the cooler versus decibel rating. So this is a little bit complicated, but it does show how different fans rank overall. So we got this yellowish line, which is the EK loop. It's performing pretty okay. I'm sorry, that was the Unifan SL Infinity 140, performing pretty okay. Mind, at the low end, it doesn't get much performance. You need to actually let it crank up enough to get enough airspeed, and then it starts doing pretty well overall. A better fan that I think in terms of its overall graph shape would be the Lightwings, but it's not quite as good at the top end. It kind of falls back. We have this purple line, which is the Unifan AL 120, which does pretty okay, except at the low end. So it's got a pretty good middle, but not as great high end or low end. So this has kind of been one of the, how do I want to call it? Like trends with a lot of these RGB fans that I've seen, where they will either be kind of mediocre overall, or they'll be good in one set of categories, either high end, low end, or in the middle. And that makes it really hard to like nail down a recommendation, because if you don't need to run your fans very fast, you could just get, one of these fans down here and it top performs at, 20, 30, 40% RPMs. But if you need something that can, do well at, 50, 60, 70, then it's a different set of recommendations. And if you need one that's, 80, 90, 100%, then that's a different recommendation. So it's a little bit of a challenge to pick out which one. So if it was me watching this video, I'd go, okay, I'll take a look at this one, which is the Light Wings. I take a look at the EK or the Bionics. I would take a look at the EK Loop. I'd take a look at the Unifan Infinity, which is purple, and the Master Fan SF120P ARGB, the Mobius, and pick out those top ones and then go watch those specific videos. But that's just me. Let's move on. So now we're on to the value proposition for these fans for the cooler. So value proposition is not taking into account the way the RGB looks. It is just performance per dollar. How much air can it push per quantity of US dollars? Because that's where I'm based. And this is based off of standard retail pricing I could find it. So the best value is the Arctic P12 ARGB. No surprise, it is a fairly inexpensive fan. I don't have the prices for any of these fans offhand, but it was the best value proposition. The Light Wings is ranked 4th and 5th, depending on 100% or noise normalized, so that is a good result. The Mobius 140p is ranked 7th and 12th out of, 26 fans or so. What's also a good notable? The Squama was ranked 2nd, and then at 100% it's only ranked 11th, so that's a pretty big drop back. The Mobius 120p, which was ranked very highly noise normalized, and at 100% is ranked 8th and 15th. So over here, the Mobius is this pink line. There it is. And noise normalized is like 12 decibels, so that's somewhere over here. So yeah, it does really quite well, but it isn't the top performer in every single spot, but it is close to the top across the majority of its noise profile versus airspeed. So again, it's up to you to determine which one best suits your set of particular needs. I can't make that decision for you. Next, we're taking a look at the case simulation test, how these fans perform in my case simulation test. And here's the overall ranking. I'll leave that for a couple more seconds before we move on. All right. Recently, I started taking a look at a bunch of different RGB fans, and it got me wondering, which ones did I think were the best looking? And I came to a general consensus that it depends on what you're looking for in an RGB fan. Personally, my favorite out of this grouping is right here, the Squama 2503B. I just really like this very subtle effect around the outside that just gives a general amount of illumination for the interior, while the Cooler Master SF120M is pretty in your face, while the Cooler Master Mobius is a much more subtle effect, but it also looks much better only from the front as opposed to the back. And then you have the pressure optimized one here, which I think looks pretty cool with this halo effect. I know it's not plugged in. I ran out of fan headers. But you're relying on the lights to transition to illuminate the blades. So not quite perfect. I think it would look better with like a darker fan blade, or maybe a white fan blade. The Hurricane up there from XGP, I'm going to have them all listed out, as well as the review that they came in, has the ring around the outside as well as the fan blade illumination. And what all these ones have in common is 8 or 6 6 in this one's case, 8 LED RGBs lights in the rotor, while this one only has 6. So the more LED lights that are in the hub, the smoother transition for the colors that go around. So what does that mean? It means that if there are fewer lights, it looks better, in my opinion, with a static color like this, while more actually pretty much looks better for a transitional type colors where it's doing like a rainbow effect that we were just doing. And the Squama, I'm sorry if I mispronounce it for them, has the smoothest and most evenly dispersion of the LED lights of all these fans. The rest of them you can clearly see where the lights are in it. So this is going to be like a compilation of a bunch of other fans as I kind of add to it, so there may be other sections. But the Aspect 12 is the 120mm version of the 140mm fan used in the RGB version of the torrent case. So this is the RGB appearance when it's color cycling, and from the camera, I'm going to try to get the focus to shift. We're going to try to get a look at how many LEDs are in it. It looks like there are 6, which is an okay amount, sort of the version 2 of the SL140. I'm going to bring up the version 1 here in a few minutes. But let's examine the RGB. So right now I just have it at a steady state color just for simplicity's sake. It's got a nice diffusion film right there, which diffuses the light. I can't really tell how many RGB lights, LED lights, are situated underneath of it. On the back, we got the same sort of thing. It looks fairly nice. My opinion, not the best looking lian-li fan, but it's certainly very nice. Let's go ahead and switch it over to rainbow mode. There we go. So the transitions are pretty nice. Again, can't really tell how many LED lights are in there. I'm trying to get my camera to focus on the bright aspects to see if I can accentuate it, but it's just got a nice smooth transition. So I would say it's got plenty of lights in there, or light sources, to really allow the transitions to work quite well. So first off, I have it in a fixed color so that I can count how many RGB LED lights are in the central hub. I counted 8, which is great for color mixing, which I'm going to turn on right now. So basically this just turns off automatic control and does the rainbow appearance. So the more LEDs that are inside the hub or around the fan itself allows for better color mixing, so that the change in color isn't quite as jarring, because it allows for more in-between colors. So like as it's cycling from green to a blue to purple, let's say, you can have more subtle colors between each one because you have an extra light to be an extra light source to change its color. So I view that as a real bonus when you're buying an LED fan, but it is up to you whether it is worth the extra cost or if the performance is up to your standards. So the point is to really let you decide whether you like the way the RGB looks or if you want to pick something else. With the number of LEDs, it creates a good cycling effect, so you have more options for colors in between different areas. So 8 is a good number, and one note, you can see that So 8 is a much better number than more value-oriented RGB fans, which usually appear to have 6. 8 allows for better color mixing, and I'm going to go ahead and make it do rainbow colors. There we are. So it has a better, smoother transitions than most other fans that have only 6 LED RGBs, and that's because you can have more light sources so that you can have that more in-between color between the two, so that there's just more. But pretty much other than that, the infinity mirror is also in the central hub. I think I forgot to mention that. And it basically is probably the best looking fan on the market in terms of the LED RGB. And it's pretty much how I compare all the other fans up against it. But do you prefer more subtle effects, or do you prefer to be more over the top? That's really up to you. just because the screen looks very bright. So the case simulation test is a box. I blow air down it, and I measure the airspeed at 4 key locations. The 6, which represents, or the 6-inch mark, which represents small form factor cases, very short GPUs, but front to back airflow with a CPU air cooler. The 9-inch mark, which represents a compact tower, again, front to back airflow. Then the 11-inch mark, which is a, did I say? Yes, 11-inch mark, mid tower case. So something like the Corsair 5000 series or 550D, 500C, Fractal, Meshify 2C, that kind of case fits into the 11-inch mark. And then we have the big towers, which is 14.5 inches, which is like the Fractal Design Torrent. So depending on what size case you want to look, you're planning on buying, you want to make sure you pick a fan with the best airspeed that suits your visual needs at that location. So if you're buying a small case, you want to look at the 6-inch mark. If you're buying a big case, you want to look at the 14.5-inch mark. What you don't want to do is look at the 6-inch mark for your big tower. You're going to be very disappointed with the fan that you purchased. Again, this data is most specifically for air coolers. I do understand that a lot of people who buy RGB are going to tend to hook it up to a water cooler. But you could always hook up your RGB fan to your air cooler. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm just going to present the data to you. So the best in this category right here is the Mobius 140p. It is kicking butt right at the top of the graph the whole way through. And then we have the Mobius 120p. So that is a great result for a 120 millimeter class fan. And then the purple line, we got the Tough Fan 12. That is a great result for that fan. But you may need to buy it in a triple pack to get this sort of pricing. And then we have the EK Loop. So these would be considered the top choices for this type of category. Next, we're going to take a look at them at 100% PW fan signaling. Ignore this 120. This is all sizes that I've tested, so it's 120s and 140s. So the very best tippy top of the fan graphs belongs to the Mobius 140p. The Hurricane starts off really well, and then it drops off very steeply. I do apologize. The colors do look very similar to each other, but I did confirm that. So if you're buying a smaller case, the Hurricane might be a good choice, but in bigger cases, it just isn't able to hold its stuff. While the Aspect 14 from Fractal is actually looking pretty okay. Mind, it's a tad bit noisier than some of the other ones. Oh, why isn't the noise data listed for all these fans? That's a little unfortunate. But it's a little bit on the noisy side, especially compared to other fans around it. But its performance is looking pretty okay at 100%. At noise normalized values, it's sort of just middle of the pack, so it's fine. It's not great. Just to bring it up because I didn't talk about that fan before. So really, it's hands down the best, the Mobius 140p. The rest of these are just kind of lumped together. You couldn't go wrong with anything that's kind of grouped in this back end category, or right here for this size, or right here. And you can use the key to figure out which one it is. But if you have a choice, the Mobius is kind of looking like the best one. Next, we have the airspeed versus a decibel reading. So this is how noise efficient it is for that given airspeed. And the Mobius 140p is really at the very tippy top, and then it maintains a very good position throughout most of its RPM range, where it only comes in a little bit behind the EK Loop at higher RPMs. The EK is a little bit underneath it, and at lower RPMs, it's actually quite a bit less performant for the same noise value. The orange line belonging to the Tough Fan 12 is looking pretty good. It's just a little bit below, keeps up fairly well overall. And the Mobius 120p is keeping up very nicely. So again, this is based off of results. I haven't done any longevity testing. I'd like to add longevity testing in the future. Unfortunately, there's just a laundry list of things that I I basically would need help from you, the viewers, or potentially a sponsor to just give this channel a little bit of funding so that I can afford better testing equipment and afford to run these fans for longevity type testing. So it's just a little bit outside the purview, so I can't determine if just because I'm saying this fan is the best, is it really the best in 1 year, 2 years? But I'm just not able to run that sort of testing right now. I hope to be able to do it in the future, though. Anyways, let's go on to the value proposition for these fans at noise normalized values. So they're a little bit out of order. The Squama, which comes in a triple pack, is actually one of the better values, particularly in noise at the 6-inch mark. At the 11-inch mark, it's ranked 4th, which is still a great result. The P12 PST ARGB is ranked 2nd and 1st from 6-inch to 11-inch, so that is a great result. And you can look through it yourself. But basically, value proposition is performance per dollar, and it's based off standard retail pricing. So if you're on a tight budget but you want RGB, use this data to pick out the one that gets you the best RGB for your dollar. Otherwise, watch one of my other videos to get best performance overall for your fan or for your computer. Well, that concludes the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is, I don't know when it's going to come out, one of 3 roundup videos that I'm actually doing right now. And this is just for all the fans that I've tested thus far. If you got suggestions for fans for me to take a look at in the future, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you got suggestions for how I can improve the video, these roundups are a little bit of a one-off, so I'm sorry I stuttered a little bit and had to re-look at the graphs, so I know I need to improve on that. But ways that I can improve the video to make it more enjoyable, please leave that in the comment section down below. Best way to support this channel is hit that subscribe button, and if you would like to join me on Patreon or as a YouTube member, any and all income that you all are willing to help me out with goes directly into this fan testing endeavor to buy better testing equipment and be able to, well, do that longevity testing that I was talking about. Anyways, thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you next time here on Computer Tech and More.